Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. This afternoon, our group, which is group 2, our task is to tackle about other types of business letters with different formats of curriculum vitae and memorandum. This afternoon, I'm going to tackle about curriculum vitae. So what is curriculum vitae? It is a brief account of a person's education, qualifications, and previous experience typically sent with a job application. In English, a curriculum vitae, Latin for course of life, or is a short written description of your education, qualifications, previous jobs, and sometimes also your personal interests, which you send to an employer when you are trying to get a job. So what is the importance of curriculum vitae? So the abbreviation of curriculum vitae is a CV. A CV is a short document that gives you a chance to show a prospective employer the best of what you've got. It tells your skills, experience, and shows them you're the right person for the job. Making a good impression is important in today's competitive job market. So, CV is the term CV is a complete summaries of a person's career, qualifications, and other informations. So mostly CV used in job seeker. They put all the achievements in schools, skills, and etc. So curriculum vitae is similar with the resume. So I will define what is resume and the curriculum vitae. So what is the difference between the resume and a curriculum vitae? A resume is a one-page summary of your work experience and background relevant to the job you are applying to. So, resume is a one-page. A resume is commonly used in, like for example, biodata. That is common in resume. So, CV is a longer academic diary that includes all your experience, certificates, and publications. So, in CV, it includes more on qualifications. If, like for example, you're saving your achievements in school, then your certificates. So, you have a lot of you have a lot of things that you put on your application, or you write it down, because that will impress to the your employer or the owner of the company. So resume, we all know that resume is mostly they will use biodata is um like it includes the personal data, your educational background, like that, and the references. But in the CV is you can put all the achievements, your skills, and your experience, etc. So that's all. Thank you.
So now we will tackle about what your curriculum vitae should include. First is your personal data. The only required information is your name, address, phone number, and email address. Now this personal data or personal information relates to an identified or identifiable individual. Your name, address, phone number, and email address is what makes you an identified person. Second is your career objectives. An objective tells potential employers the sort of work you are hoping to do. Now, when writing your career objectives, you must think carefully what your goals or objectives is when applying for that job, because employers usually or tend to seek for candidates that are driven enough to understand what they want. Then your summary of skills or professional expertise. A concise statement highlighting your strongest skills and areas of professional expertise can be an advantage to you, especially if you have a mixed experiences in your career history. So your strongest skills, you should highlight your strongest skills or your strength as an individual, and especially if you have a mixed experiences in your career history. Mixed experiences meaning you have worked to different fields of job, like you have worked as a crew in McDonald's and as an agent in a call center agency. That's an example of mixed experiences in your career history. Then next would be your education. One rule of thumb is that unless you are more than 5 years out of school, your education section should precede your experience section. Meaning, if you're more than 5 years out of school, then it is not necessary to proceed or to follow your education section to your experience section. Now, when providing your education, it is not necessary to include your GPA or grade point average unless asked by your employer or your potential employer. Now, your education section should always be updated because it can allow your employer to know that you are taking the time to reflect on your learning. Then next, your work experience. Include an organization where you work as a kagatrabaho, the job title on sa imong trabaho, the dates you were employed, kano sa ka na-employ, and a summary of your work experiences and achievements. When writing your work experiences, you must consider writing it in a well-written manner because it is a crucial part, or this work experience is a crucial part or element in your curriculum vitae, for this contains necessary qualifications for the job you are applying to. Then, next is your publications. List those publications that relate directly to your career goals. Now, when listing your publications, it should be relevant to your career goals. Employers that are interested in your publications are those teaching hospitals, research organization, consulting, and international organization. Then next is your computer skills. It is advisable to provide information about your computer skills. If you are literate in computers, then it is an advantage for you since we are now using technology. Technology now is very rampant. Next is languages. If you are fluent in several languages, list the languages you speak and think carefully about your level of proficiency. Now, why is it important that we must think carefully about our level of proficiency in a specific language? Because when you are being interviewed, you may be asked to demonstrate the languages you spoke, and if you overrate yourself, then it can cause conflict to your job applications, and the interviewer may think that you are a liar. Then next is your interest. 1 or 2 lines about your interests, hobbies, or travels can sometimes add interesting information to the interview and may spark conversation. So you have to include your interests, hobbies, or travels, and if you have the same interest with your interviewer, then it may spark conversation that can be an advantage to your job applications and can be a factor or an aspect in the decision making of your interviewer, but not all, but for some it can. Then lastly, references. You can write references available upon request if you have space. Employers will ask directly for references to prepare a list with names, titles, addresses, and telephone or fax numbers. Now, when listing people in your references, you should first ask them, or you should tell them first that you will include them in your references, since it may cause conflict if wala sila kabalo and matawagan sila, then they will be surprised and may result to conflict in your job application. So, a friendly reminder to all, the most important aspect of a successful interviewing is not your degree, your experience or your curriculum vitae, the key to successful interviewing is can be summed up in one word, which is passion. It is your passion to the job that will set you apart from the crowd. That would be all, and I am ending my topic.
So, hello everyone. I am Crystal C. Ramirez and I am assigned in this topic. So, now let's start discussing about CV writing tips. First is we need to ensure that it is easy to read. Design your CV so that the information is clearly presented. We need to create our CV in such a way that the information is easily accessible so that recruiters will see immediately that you have the right skills, experience, and motivation for the job. Next is we need to keep it short. We need to uh, limit our CV to one page if you have little or no experience, or 2 pages if you have between 7 and 10 years of relevant experience. You may be blabbering if you go on much longer, but if you go on any shorter, you may not have supplied the right information or enough information. So the third one is to always personalize your CV for the job and the organization you are applying for. Tailoring it for each position, make sure it reacts directly to the job description and exhibits a thorough understanding of the firm. The fourth one is to use keywords. Many recruiters look for certain capabilities and qualities on CVs using keywords. Make a list of keywords that can help your CV show up in search results, then figure out how to include them into your resume, talents, and personal statements, for example. The fifth one is to send your CV in a PDF form. Sending it in a PDF format at all times helps it to be professional and keeps the design intact. Number 6 is don't be negative. Don't criticize your previous and current employers and bring up any unpleasant points in your career. Your CV should project a favorable image of yourself. The seventh tip is to use action verbs. Bullet points are the most efficient way to describe your prior responsibilities. Make use of action verbs, say initiated or developed instead of I did or I was. The eighth tip is to provide evidence. Include instances of your accomplishments, such as changes you've made at work or challenges you've addressed, to demonstrate that you are a strong candidate. You can also upload credentials to demonstrate what abilities you've learned. So, the ninth tip is to triple check for spelling, grammar, and formatting mistakes. If you want to exhibit your professionalism and attention to detail, your CV must be excellent. Check for errors in spelling, grammar, and formatting 3 times. You should also have it checked by or someone you may know to avoid errors in spelling, grammar, or layout. A single mistake might result in your CV being rejected immediately. So the last tip is to check country specific CV requirements. Check the criteria for each country CV. For example, in certain nations, including an image of oneself is encouraged, whereas in others, it is prohibited. So that is the end of our discussion about CV writing tips. Now we are going to move on to the next topic. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. Our topic is memorandum. The topic memorandum is divided into three topics. Topic 1 is definition and purpose of memorandum will be reported by Ms. Hugo Roslin. Topic 2, what your memorandum should include and will be reported by Ms. Sandra May Lastimoso. And last, memorandum writing tips will be reported by Miss Umaging Twinkle. Thank you for listening. Good day, everyone. I am Roslyn Mayagmayugo, and my task is to define memorandum and what's the purpose of memorandum. I hope everyone's attention as we start our discussion. So, the definition of memorandum is a memorandum is a written message that is typically used in a professional setting, commonly known as memo. These messages are typically brief and easily understood. By following this format, a memo offers an organization the chance to communicate important information efficiently in order to make dynamic and impactful changes. So, I know everyone here is already nakadungog na mo og word nga memorandum, right? This means that ang memorandum is not that dili siya pwede nga kuan ka ng magdaghan pa jud kay kang words gamiton. Ang memorandum dapat as said in this slide, it tells that it is brief and easily understood. So that means dapat makasabot dayon ang mubasa sa imuhang ganahan ipakita. Then also memorandum, it meaning niya is reminder. So kuan siya tawag ani. Nagpahibalo siya. It is normally used for communicating policies, procedures, or related official business within an organization. That's the definition of memorandum. Now we are done with the definition of memorandum. Now let's start with the purpose of memorandum. A memorandum's purpose is often to inform, but it occasionally includes an element of persuasion or a call to action. Another purpose of memorandum is one effective way to address informal, unofficial speculation is to spell out clearly for all employees what is going on with a particular issue. Third, they may also include statements that align business and employee interest and underscore common ground and benefit. Kaning purpose nga akong gibasa is one of the purpose of memorandum rani siya dili jud ni siya nga maura jud ni purpose of memorandum. One of the purpose of memorandum na akong gibasa. So this it states here that memorandum is to often inform. Yes, like diba ni anak ko nga memorandum is a reminder. So ang memorandum kay nagbibigay ng paalala, like that. And it may also include statements that align business and employee interest. So I think that's it, and I hope you gain knowledge from my task. And now let's start listening from the next reporter.
So, after the definition and the purpose of memorandum, let's now tackle about what your memorandum should include. Basically, a memorandum consists of 4 parts: the heading, the opening, the body, and the closing. Let's now first tackle about the heading. The heading identifies for whom the memo has been written, who is sending it, the date, and the subject. The subject line serves as the memo's title. So first, date. Provide the complete, accurate date, and don't forget to include the year. List the date on which the memo is distributed. For example, September 17, 2020. we have the month, the day, and the year. Next is 2. Provide the names and titles of everyone who will receive your memo. It's the name of the recipients of the memo. If there are several recipients, it's acceptable to use group name. For example, all employees. So next is from. Provide your complete name and title. You should write the name and the designation of the sender or who is sending it. So for example, Mary Margaret CEO. So we have the name Mary Margaret and her position or title CEO. So now let's proceed to subject. Provide a brief yet specific description of what the memo is about. In short, the subject is the topic of the memo. So for example, facilities update. Remember this, that all heading labels should be in all caps followed by a colon. So now let's move on to the second part of a memo, which is the opening. States purpose of memo, gives the facts. So opening, it serves as your introduction. So in this part, you will explain your purpose or why are you writing your memo. So next, let's now move on to the third part of the memo, which is the body. The body of the memo contains the message of the memo. It describes, explains, and discusses the central idea of the memo, and includes all the details that supports the sender's ideas. As you can remember, you stated your purpose on the opening area. Now in the body, you will now discuss how will you address it. And don't forget to include all information that supports your ideas. This is also the part, you make your recommendations, acknowledge other recommendations, and describe future problems that might occur. So now let's proceed to the fourth part of the memo, which is the closing. Make a courteous closing statement. Do not use sincerely or another letter-like ending. Once you have given your readers all the information relevant to the subject of your memo, use a courteous closing statement that describes the action you want them to take and point out how this action will benefit everyone. There are also optional parts of memo, and it includes reference, response to other memos, notices, reports, and other documents. Next is attachment. So you can provide whatever documents or additional information to your readers. For example, lists, diagrams, spectrographs, tables, and other source of data. Distribution list or CC, person who might be receiving copies of memos. So CC is someone in addition to the persons addressed. So we have here an example of memorandum. So 2. GTS sales staff. From Karen Mori. CC Mr. John Sakazaki. So aside from GTS sales staff, Mr. John Sakazaki will also receive a copy of your memo. So, date, April 18, 2008. Subject, customer's presentation. So, as you can see, all heading labels are all in caps and followed by a colon. So, the opening is the GSKL marketing presentation you prepared last week to showcase our new product line was exceptional. And the body is your enthusiasm, sales strategy, and product knowledge were impressive and certainly sealed the deal with Mr. Lockhart. And for the closing, thank you for your outstanding work and dedication. Bonus check will be distributed next week. My sincere congratulations to all of you. So as you can see,
Memorandum does not contain the same part that a letter contains. It does not contain a signature block. The basic sender-receiver information is found in the heading part. So that's all, and I hope you learn a lot.
Here are the tips in writing a memorandum. First, your memos should be succinct, formal, clear, interesting, and easy to read. You need to express it clearly so that the readers can understand your memo properly. Next, it should be logically organized, accurate, well-researched, and informative. Organize the memo into paragraphs with the important information first. You may use double spacing between paragraphs and do not intend paragraphs. If needed, you may include the bulleted point sections in the main message. Next is, avoid using technical jargon and abbreviations that the recipient may not understand. It is because to avoid complications and so that the reader will not be having a hard time in understanding your memo. Next, highlight important points, reduce unnecessary wordiness with headings, subheadings, bullet points, and numbered lists. The purpose of highlighting is to draw attention to important information in a text. Effective highlighting is effective because it first asks the reader to pick out the important parts and then gives an effective way to review that information later. Next is check for correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. It is very important to review your memo so that if there will be a wrong grammar, spelling, or punctuation, you can change it immediately. Next is avoid the use of slang, colloquialisms, and contractions because contractions lessen the impact of your words and may lead to your ideas not being taken seriously. Lastly, use action verbs and an active voice to convey your confidence. In most cases, using active voice will result in shorter, sharper sentences that are easier for the reader to follow. This makes your writing clearer and aids the reader in visualizing what's happening, especially when you use vivid action verbs.
Under the cap, a piece of game, I'm love how you chat. Watching every step of the paper, the way you got. Staying in my brain, memory not.